A microburst is produced by the downdraft from a convective cell. As the vertical downflow nears the ground, it spreads out in all directions, causing a horizontal outflow and creating a situation where an aircraft attempting to penetrate the microburst would encounter the headwind, the downdraft, and the tailwind in a very short time and distance. At low altitude, on approach or departure, the resulting loss of airspeed can cause an accident. During the late spring and early summer of 1982, around Denver's Stapleton International Airport, the JAWS team brought together a collection of scientific equipment not previously used in this manner for wind shear research. Probably the most important of these tools was Doppler weather radar, which allowed the researchers to observe and record the directions and speeds of winds associated with convective storm cells moving through the area. Their findings were both impressive and surprising. Dr. John McCarthy, a pilot and meteorologist, was one of the directors of the project.
In our analysis of the JAWS results at Denver Airport, we found that there were many microbursts. It was very surprising to us, the number that we found. For example, we expected to see 10 to 20 microbursts in 90 days, and instead we saw 150. So there were many times more microbursts than we anticipated. We found some fascinating things. We found that microbursts can be incredibly intense, that the wind speed change when you fly through a microburst could be in excess of 100 knots in terms of wind speed. We know microbursts are very common here in Denver. We know from an experiment conducted in 1978 in the Chicago area that approximately half the number that occurred in Denver occurred in Chicago. That's still plenty of microbursts. We know from the accident statistics that microbursts occur anywhere where convection is occurring. We know that they occur in New York, St. Louis, Atlanta, Miami, New Orleans certainly, Tucson, and Salt Lake. We don't know all the places where they're occurring because we haven't set up all this fancy equipment. But when we have, or where planes have gotten into trouble, we have come to the conclusion that you can expect microbursts anywhere where there are convective cells, whether it's in the United States or anywhere in the world. One very interesting fact was that the average microburst during the JAWS project at Denver was 50 knots. And sad to say, that's stronger than the estimated value that brought down Pan Am 759 at New Orleans in the summer of 1982. So an average microburst is quite capable of destroying an airplane. In our careful look at our microburst statistics, we found that they don't last very long. They last 5 to 10 minutes. One of the most interesting things is that when a microburst first hits the ground, it's not as intense as it's going to be in the next 5 minutes. This is a very important finding because the first encounter, if it has just hit the ground, is half the intensity as it's going to be 5 minutes later. And several pilots have gotten into trouble by saying, hey, there's only a 20-knot shear, I can handle that, go into it and find out that it's a shear you can't fly through. Microbursts tend to occur in families. Not always, but oftentimes.